Hi everyone. Uh, Today I'm going to sort of walk you through the project that I've done for the pattern recognition course. My name is Surya Prakash and I'm a master student in computer science. I basically worked on the project of classifying toxic comments online. So what's the objective here? The objective is to sort of build a machine learning or deep learning based system that essentially takes uh, online data, online comment data, and sort of build a classification model that classifies them into different classes that can sort of predict whether the comment that you have passed online is a toxic or an abusive comment or not. In addition, we'll also see the effect of having different epochs in the neural network and what happens when you overfit data. So, uh, okay, what's what's the need here? So, as you all know, in the recent times, there has been a proliferation of uh, online social networking sites like Twitter, Facebook, uh, etc., etc. Then there is Quora and whatnot. So what happened was there is a stark and sharp rise in the number of comments and the number of opinions people express online these days. And not to mention the fact that since people are essentially uh, remote and anonymous, uh, now you can say whatever you want to say without being worried about any consequences because you're not in person anymore. This has led to many people uh, abusing or speaking crassly online. There are so many toxic comments online that you can find. Uh, Earlier, these comments were handled by basically keeping uh, people who can moderate them. But because of the drastic increase in the number of messages and comments that float around online, it is virtually impossible to keep up with the demand. And there is certainly a need to build a system that doesn't require much human intervention to filter out crass content and to keep the online space healthy environment, especially considering children are online a lot these days. So that's the goal here, to sort of present a scenario of uh, a classifier system and a sort of describe an aspect of its behavior today. We'll go in detail further. For now, let's get started. So, what's the data set that I have chosen for this project? It's the Jigsaw Toxic Comment Classification data set that I found in Kaggle, and it basically is a data set full of comments that have been mined from Wikipedia. You can find the data set in the below link, and the dataset essentially has a list of comments uh, which can be classified into six categories of toxicity. What are the six categories? Toxic, severely toxic, obscene, threat, insult, and identity hate. So toxic and severely toxic comments are the remarks that essentially you pass online with ill intent. Obscene class is when you refer to crass language, something that you wouldn't ideally use in public. A threat is when you threaten verbal or physical violence on someone. Insult is when you attack someone's looks or something that is demeaning to them. Identity hate involves insulting someone's personality, someone's race, religion, looks, gender, their orientation, could be anything. So one thing to keep in mind is that one comment could fall into multiple categories. For example, a comment can be both crass, insulting, and also can be part of identity hate. As you can see in the Excel here, uh, the line that is in all caps is uh, is a multi class comment. So the data set is structured like this. It has an ID column. It has a comment text column. The comment text is the actual comment. The ID identifies the comment. It's a unique identifier. In addition, there are six columns that specify whether or not a comment belongs to that column. So in addition, I'd like to mention that the data set has two main documents, two main CSV files. One CSV file contains the training data, the other one contains the test data. So we will be working with both of them as training data for actually training your neural network, and testing is for testing them. We'll also discuss where validation data comes into play. Uh, so uh, what does the data set look like? There are a total of 95,981 comments as part of the training dataset. Uh, and the data, like the length of each comment in terms of the number of words or letters, it has like 394. And and as you can see, not every comment has to be of similar lengths. The comments are of various lengths. As you can see, this is a distribution of the comments based on the letter count. Essentially, the number of comments that are like 0 to 200 words are the highest, having 90,473 words in this bracket. So, okay, when we say 400 bracket, we mean 200 to 400. When we say 600, we mean 400 to 600. Similarly, 800 is 600 800, 1000 is 800 to 1000, and 1000 is 1200 is 1000 to 1200. As you can see, the most number of comments either lie in the 0 to 200 bin or the 200 to 400 bin. Apart from these two, the rest of the brackets are usually very small. It means that the data, the number of the comments available online are not usually above 500 to 600 words. Understandably, because many online platforms do not allow for people entering such huge comments. So usually they're limited, and people don't usually type that long. And this is a different statistic that presents uh, the number of comments falling into each bracket, but for different classes. So it's something similar to this, but it also classifies them based on their toxicity classifiers. Just like the previous statistic, even here it is dominated by the words that are 0 to 200 words long. Similarly, the second highest is 200 to 400, and as the word length increases, their frequency decreases. And because the number of words exceeding like number of comments exceeding 600 words are fairly rare. Even if you filter out comments that are longer than 600 words, your neural net will not produce a result that is less accurate than the one that do not filter the 600 word limits. As you can, as you will see in the coming slides. But that is not something you should consider uh, if you want to retain the accuracy, or if you want to actually predict the proper behavior. Uh, so in our project, we will refrain from doing so. Uh, yeah. So in order to proceed with the project, I first started with the literature survey to sort of pick my approach in pursuing this project. So, of the papers I read, the three papers that I mentioned here are the ones that are closest to the work I am doing. So, hence the reason for me to include. As you can see, these three papers sort of influenced me to approach this project the way I did, as a way on building on top of this. Uh, and let me show. So, the first paper, which is classification of online toxic comments using machine learning algorithms. Essentially, this paper takes a similar data set to the one that we are using, and it sort of discusses the application of various rudimentary machine learning algorithms like logistic and linear regression, some random forest classifiers, decision tree, a standard SVM, and a basic KNN classifier. So this paper sort of applies all of these to the data set separately, and it sort of maps out the effect that these algorithms have on the data. Right. In as I will discuss this in the next slide. In addition to that, The paper also discusses the various pre-processing steps that you usually take on your data before you pass it to neural network. So how do you approach pre-processing your text data? So it goes something like this. Uh, by the way, you can read more about this in the research paper, for which I have linked in the reference. I found this paper very interesting. Uh, so here it goes. So when you take the plain text that you've extracted from the CSV file, you start with removing any sort of special characters, like there are commas, full stop. We are not, since we are not concerned about punctuation as much as we're concerned about the text themselves. We could go away with removing this stuff, and we generate a more cleaner sort of set of data that you will, on top of which you will perform something called stemming and lemmatization. So what's stemming and lemmatization? The idea of stemming is that you take a word in its verbal form. Like imagine there's a word that says going, gone, reading, read. So these words are reduced to their simplest forms. So reading, reader, read, etc. are simplified to read. Going, gone, etc. are simplified to go. Okay. Similarly, lemmatization is when you group similar words together. So stemming is when you bring down words to their basic verbal level. Lemmatization is when you group similar words. Like let's take synonyms like good, great, and better are brought down to one simple word, good. So what happens is that by applying stemming and lemmatization, you sort of build a context of what the comment you've mined or scraped online is like. So usually comments with good intent get grouped into easier words with good intent. That way you can predict your classes much better by doing so. So that's stemming and lemmatization. So after performing this step, you do something called count vectorization. So what does count vectorization do? It basically takes your string data, text data, and sort of converts them into a numerical array. That way, you have your uh, your common data as numbers that can be passed to your algorithm. So finally, the data you generated is passed through your logistic regression mechanism, uh, or your naive Bayes algorithm, decision tree, random forest, you name it, and these are the results that are obtained. As you can see here, logistic regression gives out the best accuracy, and it sort of has the least Hamming loss, and also has a fairly reasonable log loss, although random forest has the least log loss in this scenario. So based on your requirement, you could pick either of this, and you will see you will see in the further steps that by using deep learning algorithms, by using convolutional or recurring neural networks, you can improve on this accuracy, and I'll demonstrate that. So the next paper is something called classification of abusive comments in social media using deep learning. So the one important takeaway from this research paper is that the authors outline the need to avoid pre-processing. So earlier we've discussed the brilliant steps that we've followed to sort of pre-process your data, right? So here they make a case for avoiding pre-processing as much as possible. Uh, why does that matter? So essentially, pre-processing data gives you great results when you're concerned most about accuracy. But when you sort of want to check the behavior of your network based on other metrics like F1 or recall or log Hamming loss, etc., what happens is that pre-processed image text data, especially data where a lot of words are basically dumbed down to their simpler basic versions, and where you have done some pre-processing, thereby removing many punctuation, etc. What happens is that the context of the text is lost, and that might cause an adverse effect on how you might perceive what the person online was saying. And this And this paper basically uses an advanced GRU-based architecture to build this neural network, a deep learning-based network that blurts out a better accuracy. So as you can see here, these are the various results they've achieved for different configurations of their neural nets. So finally, this is the final paper I'm going to talk about. Something called overlapping toxic sentiment classification using deep neural architectures. This paper basically describes how they've achieved uh, different results by essentially grouping together different architectural styles of neural networks. So they have their basic CNNs, they have their LSTM, they have their Glow network, and they essentially build models that are that contain two or more of the above mentioned neural networks. Like ANN, they've demonstrated the accuracy of using just an ANN. Then there is the accuracy pertaining to only CNNs, only LSTMs, and then they've combined a Glow network and a CNN together to achieve different results, and then uh, sort of do the same with Glow and LSTM, and then finally build a model containing all three styles. So what happened was they've demonstrated different varying levels of accuracy. So after having done this literature survey, the approach that I have chosen for building this project finally culminates something that is built upon top of each of these papers, while I have demonstrated something different that this paper didn't show. I'll explain. So basically, the pre-processing that I am displaying here is no different than the one I've described earlier. So essentially, we are stripping down your data of any unnecessary characters, like if your text has at the rate of some spaces, quotes, etc. These are stripped down. We need the English words, and usually your data is converted either to smaller case or uppercase for uniformity, and then they are tokenized, means that they are passed through tokenizer API that essentially converts your text data to a matrix of numbers. So as I mentioned earlier, if the performance metrics of your network contain something other than accuracy like F1 or recall, pre-processing can have a negative effect. For this reason, we do not do much pre-processing, except for the tokenizing step, which is essential for doing any neural network-based computation on your dataset. So that step remains. The others are gone. So essentially, the neural net we have built has three major layers. The first layer has an NTSM, LTSM. The second one would be something that involves TANH based sigmoid, which becomes your LTSM. Your LTSM basically has a TANH based function rather than a sigmoid. Uh, in addition, the other two layers are ReLU and sigmoid based neural net layers. Okay, this diagram essentially describes how an LTSM basically works. As you can see, some layers also have a TANH test activation function in addition to a sigmoid. Uh, so, what's the approach we followed here? So essentially, I wanted to demonstrate the effect of having additional epochs and pushing it in a manner that causes overfitting. Okay, so I will quickly in a second we'll quickly see how using a neural network, a sort of mishmash of different styles of different neural network styles like LTSM, sigmoid, and ReLU based CNNs give a brilliant accuracy over 98%, some in some cases 99% as well, and how those accuracies drop down. Okay. So we'll go through that in a minute during the code walkthrough. Okay, so code walkthrough. What have we done to demonstrate this, right? So essentially, the code contains four files: main.py, stats.py, config.py, and results.py. The main.py contains your main code, which reads the data, tokenizes and pre-processes it, and then passes it through a neural network. And there is the stats.py that essentially generates some necessary statistics for your data. There is a results.py that prints out the results of the neural network computation, and config.py where it contains the configuration data. So this is the main.py. This is the config.py. This is the results.py, and this is the stats.py. We'll go through the code line by line. Okay, so this is, as you can see, the entry point of your code. So once you run main.py, like we'll do here, so you run main.py by entering this command, python main.py. The repository is currently in this folder, right? So essentially what we're doing here is we are reading the data set here from this function called read data. The data set is contained in this repository called data. So it essentially reads this train.csv and test.csv, and it returns the CSV data. Okay. So the data is contained in these two variables. Now these are passed to a function called extract common text. This essentially scours to the CSV, and it checks the column name. As we have discussed earlier, the comment text is contained in a column called comment text. So your algorithm checks for that column name and extracts whatever data is there in that column and puts it into a list. So we have two lists here, one for the training data, the other for test data. The values are essentially your class values. What are the class values? The 6 classes: toxic, severe, toxic, obscene, threat, insult, and identity hit. Essentially, you are creating. This values field will contain the 6 values of your toxicity levels, and the list comment train and list comment test will contain your list data from the CSVs. Okay, that's how you extract the comment text. Next, after doing that, we do some basic statistics, like the code calls the stats.display stats. We basically go through similar process of reading the training data, and we sort of randomize the data, and we sort of print this using pyplot. As you can see, this is a graph that is similar to that of the one I showed you in the PPT. It shows a distribution of comments depending on the length, and this is a similar distribution based on length and also the toxicity levels. So that's what stats.py does. Essentially, we are using matplotlib .hist. So matplotlib.hist basically displays a histogram like the one I showed earlier, and this color is the field which sets the color of each of the class, which is this one, class colors. It is found in the config.py class. Similarly, bins contain the bin intervals. Bin interval is the one we discussed earlier, right? 0 to 200, 200 to 400, etc. Or in this case, we are doing a 0 to 250, 500, 750, etc. Okay, so that is stats.py for you. This essentially is breaking down your data into 6 bins. So as I mentioned earlier, the Excel sheet contains number 0 and 1 to determine whether a comment belongs to a class or not. So every time there's a 1, we are adding that comment to this class, sort of incrementing the count value of each class based on the number of comments, and essentially displaying it on a histogram. The axis will be called, the label will be called statex label, which is length of the comment, number of comments. Axis will be your max axis length. 0 to 1500 means your x-axis starts at 0, ends at 1500. Similarly, y-axis starts at 0, ends at 100,000. Similarly, 0 to 100, 0 to 8,000. Okay, once your code is done displaying statistics, we are also going to tokenize. Yeah, okay, this is a step called tokenizing, where the list of comments we've obtained from the previous step is passed through something called a tokenizer. What is tokenizer? Like I mentioned earlier, a tokenizer is something that takes your string data and it passes that string and returns a array of numbers. It's basically like a matrix of numbers. These numbers are easier to work with for neural networks. So essentially, we repeat this step for two cases. One is for training data, the other is for test data. So the response of this are stored in these values. Pad sequences, we receive the padded sequences and we assign it to a field called neural network input as an input object. What is input object? We have it's something that we have imported from Keras. Okay, so once the input object and the tokenized training input is received, we pass them both to a neural network. The neural network essentially has an LSTM layer, dense, a dense, what is it? A ReLU layer. This variable is been configured here. This is the configuration value. The string is imported here, as you can see. The ReLU layer will obviously point this to be a ReLU function. Similarly, this is another layer with a sigmoid activation function, and all of these have a common validation. Sorry, a common dropout of 0.1. And as you can see here, the number of epochs we set for now is 2. We also will demonstrate what happens when you increase the epochs. So bear with me. As you can see here, the code is running right now. It's running the first epoch of the 2. Because the number of epochs are 2, it shows epoch 1 of 2. So once we have set all the layers, we are compiling the model as mentioned here, and we are fitting this model for the given batch size epochs, and we are splitting the data from train, test, and validation. And what's the validation ratio? It is 0.1. And this variables, as you can see, is being imported by using import config, which is the config file, and being read here. So after reading, how are we building a computation matrix? We are setting the loss as binary cross entropy loss. Optimizer is your Adam optimizer. As you can see, the optimizer here is Adam, and the metrics are accuracy. So because we are using accuracy and log loss, the response will contain both, and we are going to plot everything. Similarly, this is your results.py. Your results.py contains the results that we have obtained and tabulated from by running the network for different epochs. This is a time-taking process, so we are not showing every step in the video because it's just going to consume a lot of time. So this will be the final result, and we are essentially printing this onto the data. Oh, yeah, where is it? Yeah, like I mentioned earlier, the neural network. Sorry about that. Just give me a second. Yeah, your neural network, your read data, extract comment, tokenize. This is your config file. This is the display code. This is your display result code. Okay, so as you can see, the output is something similar to the one you have just witnessed. This is the tabulated readings. So if you notice here, for test data, the accuracy is the best when the epochs are 2. As you keep on increasing the epochs drastically, you could ask me why I didn't try epochs 2, 3, 5, 6 before going to 8, because I just wanted to see how drastically they changed once the number of epochs are doubled. There's no point in, I felt like there's no point in showing the increase in data for every epoch. We can see the trends just by following this. As you can also see, for validation data results are displayed along with your training and test results. As you can see, similar to test data, the accuracy comes down as the epochs increase. And for validation data, the log loss has increased. It's 0.04 for 2 epochs, 0.06 for 8 epochs, and 0.1 for 16 epochs. Something that is different from the log loss trend for test data. As you can see, as the number of epochs increased, the test accuracy decreased. However, the log loss also decreased for test data. However, when it comes to validation data, the validation accuracy decreased and the log loss increased. So we can conclude that whenever you are designing a neural network, you track the you should make sure that even though the accuracy of your neural network is better than the previous works that we have discussed in the literature survey, like this one, we as you can see, I have reported a number of 98 for test accuracy, uh, different from 97 and 96 that we can see here. Uh, but as you increase the epochs, the accuracy comes down. So uh, so we have to figure out the sweet spot where the increasing epochs will stop reducing your accuracy, and we have to maintain that uh, epoch level. So in conclusion, I have demonstrated what happens uh, when the number of epochs are increased or when there's an overfitting of data. So that's it. Thank you. These references are the data set. These are the 3 research papers that I have cited earlier, which have shaped the sort of approach that I have taken for this project. And these are the some of the links that I followed while to get an understanding of whatever. Thank you so much.